It's time to rethink, renew, and reimagine retirement. Welcome to Retire Repurposed. On today's episode, Taatjes tackles one of the biggest hidden obstacles to a fulfilling retirement: pride. While society encourages us to make retirement all about ourselves, true satisfaction comes from something deeper. Join us as we explore how pride can derail your retirement journey and discover how aligning with God's purpose, serving others and living beyond ourselves, leads to the genuine fulfillment your soul craves. This conversation might just change how you think about your retirement years. Enjoy this episode. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the show. Jared Sebesta joining you on another episode of Retire Repurposed. Hope you're having a great day, great week, and a great kickoff to 2025. If you've listened to this last couple of shows, you have really learned the foundation of really what this is all about. We have spent the last 2 weeks dissecting the difference between being retired and being repurposed. This really goes down to that foundational message, juxtaposing these two different positions on really what society says retirement is all about, where now it's all about you, it's all about your free time, it's all about just maintaining, losing a sense of purpose and significance. Of course, this really wouldn't be articulated by a retiree, but that's kind of what is sold to us and sold to you by society. And then we, again, juxtapose that against a different position, a more worthy position that we would call it being repurposed, somewhere or a season of your life where you have more purpose, more significance, where you're growing more, you're serving more, and you're actually becoming more of who you were actually created to be. Again, what if this was the season of your life where you actually, again, step into a greater fullness of who it was that you were destined to be and created to be? That's what we're all about here. So if you missed the last couple of shows, please go back and listen to that. If you're new to the show, welcome to the podcast. You're going to get a much different conversation, certainly, if you listen here rather than listen to other places where they are talking about retirement. We talk about money occasionally, but this is not a show about investments, financial planning. It is about the life side to retirement. Taatjes joins me on the show now, and this is just kind of the heartbeat of this show. The heartbeat of this platform is really this whole idea of finding something at a deeper level at a time in your life where society says, you know what, it's really kind of like, wheels up at this point. No need to really try any harder. Just kind of put it on cruise control and go from here, right?
Well, yeah, Jared, I think it's something that I deal with every day. Seeing clients that come in and they're talking about what retirement has been to them and what it hasn't. Mm-hmm. And so many times the disconnect is, what did society portray it to be? This endless vacation and the most meaningful time of life. And I love that one. That the most meaningful time of life is a time when I'm going to be focused on my vacations and about me. It just doesn't work. And they come in, they're like, I thought this time was going to be better. And we start to dissect what they're doing and who they're doing it for. And then we catch, okay, it is tough to be retired today because the society's saying, get out of the way, let the young people do it. You just go off and stay out of the way. Enjoy your time off, your time away. And that is what we're trying to overcome. That's what most successful retirees have learned to overcome, is this feeling of loss from their work. And then they realize what it was they lost. And it isn't just money, right? Then the income. Mm-hmm. Yes, you got to replace that. And I get a whole other business. We talk about that all the time, right? Helping people create income plans. But really what this is helping them replace what they lost in purpose with making sure they have a cause greater themselves, that every day they can get up and say, I'm going to make a difference for somebody else. Yeah. And without that, Jared, people struggle. They struggle mightily with this transition, whether they're selling a business early in their career, retiring from a 30, 40-year-old career as a teacher, as a doctor, whatever it is. They had purpose and now they don't.
Yeah. This really is a great segue into today's show, because we're going to talk about this idea of pride and self and how it gets infused into this idea of retirement. And ways to beat it. Again, this is something that you talked about extensively in your book. You'll talk about it extensively, I'm sure, in the revised version of your book. And it really comes down to this idea of contentment. Give people just kind of an overview as to kind of what you mean by that before we dissect kind of a little bit deeper.
Well, there's a verse, I think it's 1 Timothy 6:6, where it says, godliness with contentment is itself great wealth. Like it's so countercultural for sure for somebody to be content with what they have and to combine like a godly, the godly attributes, like really we're all looking for, we're created to be in his image. So we're going to fall or feel unsettled and unfulfilled if we are looking for things in this world to complete us, right? Mm-hmm. So if God made us, Jared, to be in his image and he lives in heaven and he has, he knows what's best for us. And here we are on earth trying to fill that void with all of the earthly things, right? We're always going to run short. I've been, as you know, pouring into C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity, and he talks so much about that idea, and it's, I forget what chapter, but deeply into this idea of if you feel like you're not made for this world, or you're going through something really hard right now, a sickness, whatever it might be, you're like, man, I'm longing for something different. You were probably created, like I was, for heaven. You were created for life with him. You are going to feel that angst, even if things are good here, right? It's something C.S. Lewis talks about. If you're pushing towards like enjoyment through travel, you're going to be unfulfilled. There's always something, right? The hotel, as great as it is, and the travel as good as it was, is just not quite what you thought, right? Mm-hmm. Once you arrive and you sell your business and you thought that would be it someday, and you're like, yeah, there's something else missing, or even retirement. Like I thought that was going to be the thing, and you get there and it lets you down. It's because everything will. Really. Yeah. The beautiful thing is about being a believer is understanding that's why, right? So what is our goal? Well, to become more and more like him. How do we become more and more like him? Well, I do believe it comes with being selfless, or trying to be. And I'm a work in project, or I'm definitely a work in process there, Jared. I can tell you that.
Yeah. I think we all are. And that's a process that obviously will never come to an end. We'll never get there. And it's not because that we are, again, like insignificant or not good enough or smart enough. It's just because I believe that level of perfection is like, it's so perfect that it's it is impossible to get there on this side of eternity. Talk about like, you mentioned how if you feel like this world just isn't what it's supposed to be, that's actually probably a good sign that you're on the right track. Now picture that against the typical American dream retirement, which is really all about being comfortable, right? When you start to kind of look at it in those eyes, you can kind of see why you're so passionate about this, because if you just go down the comfortable road, there's no growth, there's no expansion there. There's no sanctification, as we'd call it, in from like church speak. So like that, it kind of makes sense to me when you talk about that, because I'm like, if you're just kind of going with the flow, then you like start to activate like Romans 12:2, which is like, don't be conformed to the patterns of this world. Same type of thing, right? Yeah.
Sometimes I think we fit in too well, as believers. I've done it where things are. Jared, we should look different. We should not conform. We should look a little bit different. We should look different on how we treat our time, talent, and treasure. So if I'm seeing somebody that's very comfortable and in a spot where we almost become self-reliant, that is a problem. And I've done it. There's been times in my life, I think we talked about a couple of shows ago, where I was really going through hard stuff, and that's sick kid. And when you're there, man, it's easy to be close to God. Yeah. But yet, what do we do as a society? And as more successful we get, every society in history has done that. We become more and more self-reliant and less need for God. And therein lies the problem. It doesn't work. We end up falling back at some point to say, oh, I need you. And I think that's what we're trying to portray to people coming in this season of life is the promise is retirement's going to be great, right? It's going to be all focused on your vacations, your travel, your hobbies, your family, whatever it is. And when we miss the part that, it probably isn't perfect, because nothing in this world is, we start to feel like, I'm missing something. And the thing you're missing, to your point, is that closeness with God sometimes. I think sometimes it's purpose. Many times it's like, why am I so stuck today? Why am I not having a good day? Well, it's because you haven't created anything. God made you to create. We were created him in his image. He was the ultimate creator. So many of our most successful entrepreneurial individuals, these high achievers, oh man, retirement's tough because they're used to growing and creating and achieving. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Too many times we're like, oh yeah, you've done enough. We've had shows on that, Jared. We talk about, I've done enough. I need to slow down, whatever it looks like. I'm like, I don't think that's right. Now, if you're not slowing down because you're so busy building something for your own personal gain and it's taking the place of your family, other more important things, that's a problem, right? Yeah. But if we're just growing for the right reasons and we continue to create, I do think we're getting closer to who God made us to be, and therefore feel more back to this idea of being content, right? The times when you feel the most at peace is usually a time when you feel like you're walking in what God wants for you in that season.
Sure.
I've had those moments. I've also had the times where I feel tons of internal angst, right? And what is it? And I usually can go back to this feeling of, I've got it all myself. I don't need him. And I think that's more than anything the concern I would have for somebody who's coming into retirement or any stage of life and they're becoming more and more self-reliant.
Yeah.
Right. What's more self-reliant than just not even working and allowing my money to work for me? That's pretty self-reliant. Which I love that, and that's a goal for many of us to say, we've created a financial plan that you don't have to work. The problem is when then what that extra time is created because we don't have to work for the money, our money's doing that. Now I'm kind of stuck focusing too much on myself. Yeah. You fix that, now everything's better.
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, you talked about how we don't want to stop growing. I think one of the attributes of the divine, of spirituality, is growing. I think that there should be a natural growing process. I mean, heck, look around. I mean, like if you look at creation, like you look at animals and plants, like they just naturally grow. The natural byproduct of being part of creation is growth, right? And so, in fact, as we dissected the difference between being repurposed and retired last week, one of those is that you have a growth mindset instead of maintaining. And as we talked about, if you're not really ever maintaining, you're kind of either going up or down, right? So like, what's that look like in your opinion? Like, what are some more tangible ways that looks like to a retiree to get retired, get into retirement now where their money is essentially funding their life. They don't have to work. They may choose to in whatever respect that looks like. But, what does it look like to be growing in retirement?
I think growing in retirement, Jared, is realizing that there's a lot of things you probably don't even know where some passions and skills even lie because you've been so focused on a career. So I do believe that there's a lot of things that I find new retirees enjoying if they're willing to try new things, which is really hard, right? You can't. It's so hard to teach somebody that's stuck in their ways to do something very, very different. But I find that the clients that we work with that actually do that are so much better off and they're so happy. Now, don't just do something new and grow in a activity without taking somebody with you. That's the other piece, right? So we know that when people tell stories about their life, there's a person, there's a relationship, there's an impact that was left. So anybody with a meaningful story, there's people involved. That's what legacy is, right? Your lasting impact on people. It has nothing to do with money, right? Money, anything about really legacy that money has to do with, that's really what your kids are spending, right? That's more inheritance, not legacy. Yeah. So I look at legacy, Jared, and seeing how people leave those, and it's all about the people impact. So what do I do to keep growing? Well, I grow in a way that allows me to get new skills or hone the skills I have, use the talents that God's made me to do that, and then I look at who I'm going to serve that with, who I'm going to do life with together, right? Who I'm making a difference in, and then what people groups or community impact am I going to have by using those talents in something for many people is very, very different than their day job was for 30, 40 years.
Sure.
And that's what's kind of fun about people that are living a content, like full retirement, is there's some great passion that they're after, and it is almost always many times it's a repurpose, right? They're tying in some purpose, but it's a totally re-engineered new way of looking at how they're going to spend their days. They're focusing more on the stuff that matters.
You talked about the word passion there. I think when people lose passion, they lose kind of that fervor, that spark, which, by the way, can happen at any point in your life. But I think you're probably more susceptible to it. I can imagine if retired, when you kind of lose your platform to display your gifts and be able to add purpose fairly, I don't want to say effortlessly, but you're given a platform at work every day to do that, right? And so, like, let's talk about this, like finding that spark again. How do people do that? Do you see that often where people, they don't know how to, because I would imagine people don't come to you and say things like, I just kind of lost that spark and I lost my passion and I don't really know what that is. They don't say that, but like, what's that sound like to you during maybe even a financial meeting? And what do you tell people if they were to bring that to the table?
Yeah, you're right, Jared. Nobody ever comes in and says, I'm not like
passionate today.
Yeah, passionate today. But you can see it, right? I think if you've dealt with a retiree and you're out there listening, and either you're seeing it yourself or you're seeing it in a loved one, a slowing or a less growth mindset, more maintenance type feel. Look first to where are they finding purpose? Mm-hmm. Where are they finding a cause greater than themselves? That can be family, certainly is easiest. But to your point, your job made that so easy. Mm-hmm. People do not understand how much purpose, how much closer to their creator they are when they're working. Mm-hmm. That's why there was work in the garden before Adam sinned, right? That he was working. It was a different kind of work. It was a lot easier, but it was great work. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that people need to realize is that some of that passion and some of that fervor for life comes because you are becoming more like your creator. And if you're not doing meaningful activities, it is going to be really hard. Mm-hmm. So that's where I would start. I'd say, well, what are you doing right now to make a difference for somebody else? Are you able to use your skills and talents that you have to impact them? In what ways? And just see where they go, because I think that's the key. And if you want to run out of passion and you want to get tired and you want to feel more hopeless, then focus more on, I hate to say it, but yourself, and it'll happen really fast. I
think people have to understand like the rules of the game. I encourage a lot of people to understand that, to know that, to dive into that. Like if you understand the rules to any game, you're going to have a much better chance of winning the game, right? And so the way that I explain it to people, whether retired or not, is like if you understand the rules of the game, then you can have a chance to win. What are the rules of the game? Well, act like your creator. Have your actions be in alignment to the heart of the creator. Your thoughts, your emotions, the way you treat people, not succumbing to sin, not succumbing to flesh, pride. Not sinning in your anger. Like there's all of these things. And what's so interesting too is like people think that they're these opportunities to do that are kind of these one-offs. Like it comes every once in a while, once a week. The truth is that you're probably given dozens, perhaps hundreds of opportunities a day. We may find them as challenges to actually integrate and align our state of being to Him. And if we were more aware of them, we would see them and we'd understand that there's actually a chess game happening before ours. We may not see it. And it's actually the Creator's hand to give us opportunities to be more like Him. And so, again, to your point, like now you're retired. So, like, really, what if you actually started becoming hyper aware of those opportunities? You would watch actually your life take on more fullness, purpose, and fulfillment at a very rapid rate. And I think that's really what you're getting at. Yeah, you want to live this full content. I'm use happy, right? Mm-hmm. So people's like, how do I, just have more joy?
it's by doing those things. And I've struggled there lately, Jared. I mean, I've had, that's a struggle. That when you start to have pride creeps in, or self-reliance creeps in, and you're not aware of that.
Yeah,
it's really easy to lose the joy, the contentment, because again, what am I doing when I'm prideful? When I am selfish, ultimately I'm saying, I don't need you, God. Ultimately, at the root of it, it's like, well, I don't need that right now. I'm good. And the reality is we do, right? So I end up getting further from him. My relationships suffer. And that's exactly what happens to a lot of us, retirement or not.
Yeah. I had a conversation with one of my daughters. Like, we were driving somewhere. There had just been like a confrontation or some sort of conflict in our home. I have 4 young kids, Ben. So I'm on the other side of you and probably most retirees.
Well, I have 2 teenage daughters, so there's plenty of conflict all around, Jared.
Yeah. Well, we'll compare notes, but there's many opportunities for there to be some conflict in our home, and we talk a lot about it in our home, like, don't react. Like, just don't, like, if you can just bite your tongue, like, your flesh and your pride wants to convince you, if you will lash out, say the thing, it will make it better. And it's actually, to your point, you're actually saying, no, God, I got this. I'm going to take this one by the toe here, and I'm going to try to interject my agenda into the situation. And again, we don't say this, but that's kind of the spiritual exercise that's happening. And then after this conflict, I had to take my daughter to dance or something like that. And I just said, do you want God to work in and through your life? That's a rhetorical question. Of course, the answer is yes. And I said, every time that you cannot succumb to the flesh, pride, anger, bitterness, resentment by saying the thing, if you can just pause, what you are actually doing in the spiritual is you're opening up the pathway for God to get to enter more into your life. Now, that's not to say that you're not loved, saved, cherished. I'm not suggesting that that's not the case. But to me, and I think what you're saying too, and for retirees, the more that you can align to the rules of his game, then the channel for his spirit and his work in your life goes up. And that's really, really the essence of life in general.
It is, Jared. I think that's such a beautiful tie-in to how I kind of end this show is, I've been into Mark 10. Kind of. I even sent a message to my pastor about this. I'm like, Mark 10's about the rich young ruler, and what bothers me about that is, for many of us, it's we tend to focus on, well, if we do just walk away from all the things of this world and just focus on God, then I'm going to live a pauper's life, and I'm not going to be able to enjoy this life. There's no abundance. I'm going to I got to just sacrifice everything. And the reality is you do have to put God first, right? But we tend to forget the second half of that chapter. And the second half where he says in verse 30, let's start in 29. Jesus said, "Truly I say to you, there is no one who has left house or brothers or sisters or mother or father or children or lands for my sake and for the gospel that will not receive 100-fold now in this time," meaning on earth, houses, brothers, sisters, mothers, and children and lands. And then there's this part, with persecutions, in this life and in the one to come. And I was like, man, Pastor, I love this whole thing about if we do surrender what we have and say, God, this is yours, we're going to actually get it all back 100-fold times, right? And I read that like, yeah, we don't have to say, I'm not going to enjoy this life, or you don't want good things for me, God, in abundance. But you're saying there, and I read that as with persecutions. It means this world ain't perfect. We're still going to have a close friend that passes away. We're going to have a family member with health issues. We're going to have all these things that, well, we're waiting. We're waiting, and the pains for heaven are real, right? And this isn't it. And nor will we feel like this is the perfect place for us, because it's not. We're created, right, to be with our Maker.
Securities offered through Avantax Investment Services. Member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Avantax Advisory Services. Insurance services offered through an Avantax affiliated insurance agency.